So John is I would say the single largest contributor to Solidus, and I know that no one here would ever claim that we would be anywhere close to where we are without his effort. He's a software developer at STEMbolt who works full-time on the open source Solidus project out of Victoria, BC. He's a Linux enthusiast, a baseball fan, an avid ping pong player, and he has a mighty beard. So he's here to tell us about some of the recent changes to the Solidus admin. So please, everybody, welcome John Hawthorn.
Thank you. As Gregor said, I'm John Hawthorn. I get to develop Solidus full-time, which is really great, because there's a lot of work to do. So why have we focused on the admin? Well, the admin's been a bit of a focus because it's deceptively important. It's not the main application for any of us. I imagine most people in this room spend a lot more time developing the front end, but the admin actually runs businesses. It's not possible to run most businesses without having the admin to administer orders. It's also probably the component we share the most. Everyone will have a different front end and different other concerns, but we're all using more or less the same admin. I bet all of our stores look pretty much identical if you visit /admin. I want to start with a story that demonstrates my process developing things. One of the niceties of developing the open source product full time is that whatever annoyance I have, I can, with the state of our software, is that I can indulge it. I can go down that rabbit hole and yak shave to my heart's content. So, Font Awesome. We use Font Awesome, which is an icon font, pretty much everywhere in the admin, which would be great, but we've used it everywhere incorrectly. On the top is how you're supposed to use Font Awesome. You can have a container element. You then make a I, it can be a span, really doesn't matter, and you give it some Font Awesome classes. And there's some CSS that puts an icon in that place. Unfortunately, we don't do that. We put Font Awesome classes directly on the container element. We do this for everything. We have that as in the buttons on these little standalone bubbly buttons. We do this in the navigation. And there's a bunch of issues with doing that. Font Awesome is a font, as the name suggests. And we're applying that font to the entire container element. And fortunately, Font Awesome has glyphs for high up Unicode characters that are reserved for icons. It doesn't have characters for our normal Latin letters, unlike, say, wingdings. But it's still a font, and our web browser is trying to look for that font to display these letters, and it has none. So it would look like this with a ugly default web browser's choice of serif font. Someone a while back, keen-eyed observer, noticed this and added this hack, which is a great hack, to quickly make it less horrible. And what this does is it sets Open Sans as a fallback. And this works so long as we only ever want to put one font next to our icons. But there's further issues. Font Awesome sets our display to inline block, which might not be what we want. It sets our font smoothing to anti-aliased, which we saw on some configuration of OS X made for weird blurry letters. And it sets line height to 1, which can have some weird results. So basically, this weird hack is responsible for making our icons show up, or our buttons show up right in a bunch of places. It also results in CSS like this, which admittedly, part of this is otherwise abusive extends, but the whole purpose of this padding right 5 is that it's trying to simulate a space after the icon. Whereas normally, if we were to use Font Awesome the correct way, we could just have a space. So I figured, all right, let's fix it. Just got to change the one on the top to the one on the bottom. So I go look at the helper that we use pretty much everywhere in the admin, link to with icon, with the thought that shouldn't be bad. Unfortunately, immediately see that it's using raw on a string that takes arbitrary input, which is bad. Because anyone could, if user input was put into this text field, it would not be escaped, and it would just dump out JavaScript or HTML or whatever onto our page. Now, fortunately, at least in Solidus core, there was nothing using it that way, but we really want to do due diligence for security issues, so we want to patch it and make sure it's part of a proper security release. And as we're doing that, I figure, well, have to due diligence again, have to check for anything else similar in our admin helpers. And yeah, there's more like that. Here we put the variant name unescaped on one page. And I'm thinking, well, that's a little bad, but at least only admins can change variant names. And well, we really shouldn't do this. No huge danger. I don't know what's up with this one. That's very bizarre. And then, while I keep searching for all of these, find a more substantially bad one, where you can register with this email, which is, as far as Devise is concerned, a valid email. And if you were to try and make an order with that user, it would run the script. And that's bad. Turns out you need to escape select two inputs. So we patched that up, did all the other things, and this is my long-winded of saying, please subscribe to our security mailing list. We've done, I think, a very good job of bumping up the security of Solidus. I think we do a great job of only adding security releases to our patch releases. So it should be the case that you can just, if you're using Semver with, if you're using Semver really at all, you should just be able to bundle, update, and push, and it should be fine. We should only be applying security patches. And also on our mailing list, we're very good at providing workarounds. So even if you're on an older version of Spree and looking to upgrade to Solidus, please subscribe. You will only get emails you definitely want. So, world saved. Back to icons. Next problem is that we've got old JavaScript. This is a long-running project. Some of our admin JavaScript that's still in there is a good 5 years old. And some of it was doing things like binding directly to the icon. So I couldn't move the icon inside the element because you'd then have to only click on the icon. The rest of the button wouldn't work. And it's not great to bind on the icon anyway, because if someone made just what should be just a purely visual change and used a different icon, all of this JavaScript would now not work. And I've thought, all right, shouldn't be too hard. I'll just go in there, change the classes in both here and in the view, and that should be that. But I found there were actually two views, or more, two copies of the exact same view. One in a normal HTML herb file, and another as a handlebars file. And I'm nitpicky enough that I was not willing to just fix it in both places. I really wanted to have only one place where we would have views. Because even if I happen to spot that this view is in two places, I need to fix it twice, the next person might not. And then we'd have views that are out of sync and don't work in different ways. And fixing this wasn't as easy to do as one would hope, because the JavaScript's in a state that I like to call jQuery soup, where you've got callbacks everywhere, everything's an anonymous function, your state is all in the DOM, and you're reaching into the DOM to find nearby DOM elements to the one your event was clicked on. And it's just hard to move forward. And there's no structure to this, and I had no idea what any of it did. And it being 2015 or 16, I figured we need some structure, and a framework should help us. And in the interest of not starting a flame war before pub night, I will just say all of these are great. And they're and there's no problems with any of them, and they're all equivalent. But we use Backbone. And Backbone, I think, uniquely fit our situation perfectly. It's we are in a uniquely difficult situation in the admin where because we're sharing this sort of sub-application with all of our users, we can't add an extra build step like using npm or gulp, grunt, webpack, whatever it is this week. And we really need to stick with plain JavaScript or CoffeeScript inside of sprockets. It's also a ton of other things fit for us. It uses it's template agnostic. We can put whatever we want as a render function, and we had a lot of existing handlebars, and it was nice that it would use that. But by far the best thing about it was that it allows upgrading bad JavaScript very incrementally. Where with other frameworks, you might be able to upgrade section by section or possibly page by page, rewriting the whole section or whole page at a time in a new framework. With Backbone, I found we were able to just even go JavaScript file at a time, doing small, tiny changes that brought us to a somewhat well-structured JavaScript file. So the steps I normally go through is to take all of our anonymous callbacks, throw them in a Backbone view. Backbone view is just a thing which has an element on a page. Normally this will be something like a row in a table, or it could be a larger thing, but it's something that makes sense as a group. And then you can name the various callbacks you want to have, which is helpful because you now know what they do. And then you you declare some events that you want bound from the top level element, and everything bubbles up, so it all works great. You'll see at this point I have removed the icons from the event binding. Next step is to start using Backbone Model, which helps a bunch in that Backbone Model allows fetching, saving, and creating, and communication and syncing with our backend API, and needs a tiny bit of configuration to work with Rails, but we've thrown that in there, and now it works perfectly. And for some things, Backbone falls apart because it doesn't allow much other than a very one-to-one mapping of the data we receive from the API to what we use on the front end. But for an admin, this is actually great because we just actually want to edit models. And finally, grouping things together in a render method. So ideally, this means using handlebars, but really the concept is simpler. Even if you're using sort of the jQuery soup style of show some things, hide some other things, append some random HTML you have, that can still go in a render method because Backbone does not care. So after adding Backbone, it was much easier to make changes. And while doing it, we were also able to improve some UX behavior that was bad before. So the end of my story is that I did not fix the icons. Maybe next year I will have fixed them. But we did improve security, structured our JS a bit better, improved our user experience, and surprisingly end up with less JS. And that's not actually a selling point of Backbone. It's not supposed to result in less JavaScript, but by giving it structure, it just turned out that way, which is nice. We've also made a bunch of changes that we intended to set out to do. A big one was improving the admin navigation. So this is where we were at before. Should be a page familiar to probably everyone here. And there's UX reasons this isn't ideal, but I think a much more understandable and simple problem with this is that we're out of space. This is a mock-up of a page a coworker showed me where there are too many second-level tabs, and it overflowed. So with this, you can no longer tell what page you're on if it's one of these top-level ones, because the little caret is green on top of the other green. I've also heard that it is not uncommon practice to remove the icons in the top so you can fit more stuff in there. I believe, and in ours, we've already done terrible things like this. Settings there is because configuration no longer fit. Yeah. I also have found from a coworker that they have replaced, they've gone further. Instead of settings, they used conf, and instead of promotions, they used promos. So we should stop doing that. There's also a third level of navigation, which is here, which used to be the right sidebar. And I just don't think that has unlimited space, unlike the other two, but I just don't think it's obvious that that's our third level of navigation. I imagine that's very confusing to new users. So this is what Amanda designed and was implemented by Kevin and Gray and Murphy and Martin. So thank you all very much. Here is where the new navigation is. It's all in the sidebar in a sticky menu that stays on the page as you scroll up and down. And this allows unlimited space because it is vertical, which is very nice. As well, the tab menu, though it doesn't look like it, does allow unlimited items because as if they overflow, they're grouped together in a dropdown, which is very cool. And I think this also makes a much better use of space. You can see there's clearly less wasted white space compared to before. There's also this nifty flyout menu, which happens when you hover over any of the menu items and allows you to get to any of the second level menu items from any page in the admin, which should speed things up. One nice thing about how Amanda does this work is that it always starts with a GitHub issue that has a statement of the problem, maybe a screenshot or a mock-up of what she hopes to see. And these are put here to make sure that we understand the needs of various users. And we get there's a little feedback. I think we could use some more. We get much, much more when there's code. Get a full, which I suppose that's programmers are using GitHub, so that's what we get all the reviews on. Jordan earlier called himself an optimist, and I would like to present this comment as evidence to the contrary. He says, "I tried this out on our code base and was amazed how few things were broken." Might also disqualify him from the nicest team member. I'm not sure. So, but I think that is surprising that we were able to do this. We tried to make this in a way that did not break compatibility as much as possible. And compatibility is hard to do because the use of deface to add menu items is currently our standard way to do it. And we have extensions that do that. I'd imagine most stores are adding things into our menu. And that relies on really all of the structures staying the same, all the IDs staying the same, and all the data hooks staying the same. But it is possible to do that. So all we've done to change the left menu, for example, is we're rendering it from a different location. And then we've just changed classes around. So where we previously had a class of inline menu, we're now an admin submenu. And tabs, very similar. Instead of being a menu, it's a tabs. And this is really just a benefit of doing things properly anyways, because CSS should be the thing where we declare our styles. Did it work? I think it did. I'm very pleased that I've never heard of issues due to the menus breaking. Any extensions which add things to the menu continue to work. In the future, we probably need to find a better way to do this. We want to add breadcrumbs to the top of the menu, and both in order to do that and so that we don't have to be so meticulous about maintaining the existing DOM structure, we probably need some sort of configuration to build a menu. So if you're at all interested in this, please reach out to Kevin or myself. I think it would be nice and very helpful. Another big change is that we've introduced Bootstrap, specifically the version 4 alpha. And this was purely out of community interest. I don't think this was on the core team's radar at all, but there was a lot of interest in having a framework that was well-defined and had good documentation, unlike ours, which was poorly defined and works differently based on a number of things. So yeah, we figured, after some thought and some very compelling arguments, we figured, yeah, it's a good idea to include Bootstrap. So here's what we looked like before Bootstrap and afterwards. So we didn't change anything. We didn't have to. We want to keep compatibility as much as possible, and that means keeping our existing classes in the admin need to still work. And we're going to probably start using more Bootstrap style things incrementally. But in the meantime, it is there. You can start using it today to define things that are in custom areas. And we've started for various of the components we're using. We also had another minor innovation when adding Bootstrap, which was that the realization that people are probably using Bootstrap on their front end. And we really wanted to use the version 4 or alpha, so we never had to upgrade to the version 4. And it wouldn't be fair for us to force anyone who is using Bootstrap 3 on their front end store to have to do it so they could upgrade to the latest version of the admin. And the solution's very simple. Instead of including a gem that contains Bootstrap, we've just placed it under a Solidus admin subdirectory. And we're doing this now for every admin asset, which is great because this has actually caused us problems before where there's been incompatibilities between the version we want for, say, our grid system between the front end and the back end. We're switching from skeleton which is our old 16-column grid, to our new Bootstrap 12-column grid. If anyone's unaware why 12 columns is way better, it divides by 3. As well, at the same time, we're able to make better use of the white space on the page, as Bootstrap has more options for us, like having a more responsive grid that takes up the full width. It also has nifty JavaScript things. We swapped out our old tooltips, which were a bit awkward and had to keep being reinitialized, with Bootstrap ones, which you can just initialize once, and it will even pick up items that are added onto the page dynamically. And yes, there will be more Bootstrap as we move forward. New things will probably be made using at least the Bootstrap tag structure. Another change that's somewhat in there, it's a toggleable feature right now, is a new color scheme. This is the color scheme we inherited, the spree blue. I think it's pretty nice, but it's not what it could be. It doesn't feel, to me at least, it's as professional as it could be. And it always feels like I'm using a spree store rather than just administering my store. And the new color scheme that Amanda came up with is this one. And I really like this. I don't know why it's so much nicer, but for me, it clearly is. It's very simple. And I think more parts of the page still have colors to come. And it's currently just the navigation. But I like it. Unfortunately, I allowed Kevin to name it, and it is called Blue Steel. But this, if you're on Solidus 1.2, this is already available to you. We wanted it to be an opt-in feature because changing colors around could scare existing admin users. So what you have to do is create a new variables override SCSS file and simply include the Blue Steel version. And at some point, I imagine we will make this the default. And at that time, we will provide a way to use the existing color scheme to avoid scaring admins who have a hard enough time as is. It's also possible, and I highly recommend, make your own. It's not too much work. You just have to declare a few colors. Kevin's made an excellent blog post on the StemBolt blog about how to do it. And it will give your admin your own feel. Currently, this uses the existing variables we had in our SCSS, but I imagine at some point we will use the Bootstrap versions, and you may be able to include a Bootstrap theme and have most of those styles apply. So I wanted to close by restating my opening. Why focus on the admin? It's really important. It's the thing we all share. It's probably why a new store would use Solidus, is that it's not too much work to take a payment. Some things are hard, taxes, shipping, but I think mostly people need an admin, and it is a lot of work to make one. And it turns out we can, in fact, make compatible changes and make significant changes forward without too much trouble. And this is just not the case if we were to make changes on the front end, which are never welcome because people are using those as their front end store. And finally, it is the best place for us to have collaboration. Everyone has this same admin. I think we all have a desire to make it better, and we should talk and figure out the best changes we can make to move it forward. Thank you. I can take a question or two, but I'll also be around here for a bit and then at pub night. And I'd like to, if you'd like to say hello. Any questions? Yeah. Well, I've just proposed one for the menu system, deface is horrible. Don't get me wrong, but it's also like it's the things it needs to do in order to run is it takes your ERB template, it runs a regular expression over it to convert ERB into XML. It then parses that XML, transforms it, and then runs regular expressions to convert it back. And that's horrible. However, if you want to like hide an item on a page, it does do it really well. And I can't think of an easy way for us to provide that same ability to hide an arbitrary element on the page. One alternative is to use JavaScript to inject things at runtime, but that's also gross in its own way. So I think on a case-by-case basis, we should start trying to provide things like a configurable menu system where we expect a lot of people to make changes, but I think at least for the time being, there's going to be a need to provide something like deface. Oh, another one is if we have smaller templates, people are also more likely to be able to override the entire template.
Yeah, spoilers is often are maintaining deface, and we're not used to it. If anyone wants to take that from us, we'd be really happy.
Yes?
Is there an appetite to sort of deprecate that version of the admin completely? Like, I mean, we've done sort of legacy returns. You can mount that as an extension. If there's going to be a lot of pain to make the admin a lot better, would it be easier to just say, if you need old admin, use it, but we want to just change it entirely?
I don't actually think there is a lot of pain in moving the admin. As Jordan is, I'm surprised by how little things broke when we moved it forward. There are certainly parts of the page we might want to pull out, but I think that unlike other parts of Solidus, that we need absolute compatibility and we can't change anything at all. I think the admin, we have to be careful in just only specific areas like menu systems that we think are common targets. And for other things, we can actually make very substantial changes and people will only be happy about them.
Cool.
Anyone else? Well, thanks very much.